Hello, everybody. My name is Samantha McLaughlin, and the title of my presentation is Contamination, Phallocracy, and Gender Genocide Trauma. Today, I will be discussing the idea of phallocracy and its centrality to gender genocide studies, particularly the stories of women that we have read about throughout this course. I will examine the experiences of the protagonists in A Novel About the Balkans, and First They Killed My Father, in addition to stories of wartime rape included in Belonging and Genocide, Hitler's Community, 1918 to 1945. It is important to note that the concept of phallocracy, which I will define momentarily, is not unique to genocide. Rather, phallocracy is a term that can be traced back to ancient Greece in and around 415 BC in Athens. Depending on your political leanings, you may even see phallocracy unfolding in the United States in 2020. That is a Pandora's box to open in another class. In this presentation, I will define how phallocracy thrives during genocide because both crimes desire women to be, number one, property, number two, possessed by the male body, and number three, on display for the male gaze. Using Christine Stiles' scholarship on Holocaust trauma, I will analyze literature from this course in an attempt to answer the two following questions. Number one, in terms of literature, which female identity, either Holocaust survivor, rape survivor, or horizontal collaborator status, would be the most targeted by the community and why? And how would the women react to the public display of their victimhood, which is essentially a second trauma to relive the rape again and again, like the tattooed women featured in Christine Stiles' research? More on that to come in just a minute. Phallocracy is a society or governmental system which is dominated by male hegemonic figures with the goal to dominate and repress the female sex. In 2016, Christine Stiles, a feminist scholar of Holocaust art history at Duke University, published Concerning Consequences, Art, Destruction, and Trauma, which featured a chapter titled Shaved Heads and Marked Bodies, Representations from Cultures of Trauma. This chapter examined two methods of humiliating women and subsequently removing their identity after rape and societally perceived sexual relationships between a minority and the SS. Think of the most famous one, Helena Centronova, during the Holocaust. These two methods are shaved heads and marked bodies. While you can find these same methods of humiliation in David O'Leary's artwork from his time as a Sonderkommando in Auschwitz-Birkenau, the methods are not simply for art history and visual culture analysis. For the sake of time and clarity, I will not delve into the shaved heads. When you hear the phrase marked bodies, though, think of the ending of Quentin Tarantino's *Inglourious Basterds*. Brad Pitt's character, Lieutenant Aldo Raine, carved a swastika into Hans Landa's forehead, the character expertly played by Christoph Waltz. The same action was inflicted upon women who had sexual relations with Aryans, although in the form of public tattooing. The tattooing represented a permanent reminder of the things women had done with their bodies or forced upon their bodies. However, it is important to remember that marking a female body is not always something that's visible. Rather, perpetrators favored invisible actions that left remnants on the female psyche. Because of marked bodies and phallocratic societies, we see the function of the women's room in A Novel About the Balkans. When S is relieved from her nursing duties by a soldier, readers are privy to her inner monologue. S notes how his eyes travel from her face to her breasts and below her waist, and, quote, remembers his hot, searching male stare as they walked together across the courtyard, end quote. These actions of ownership are literal markings on S's body. During her rape, S recalls the, quote, strange men reveling in their trophy, end quote, which they would eventually curse, tie up, and urinate on. Her body is treated like property, like an object the men can dispose of at any time, which they do. S is subsequently sent to the women's room where her body is marked again and again by drunk soldiers. Where S aligns with Stiles almost to a T is a quote on page 64, when S comes to after being hospitalized for a fever after her rape. S confesses that she could not imagine that a man's body could do such damage to a woman, that it was so powerful, so unfairly overpowering that a woman had no defense against such a force, end quote. Whether the phallocratic violence happened in public, the visible, or private, the invisible, a woman's body and mind are marked with traumatic memories that they can never forget or unsee. What Stiles does not include in this chapter is what happens when a woman decides to make her trauma visible to others by telling her story. How does this shift in response from silent to vocal restore a sense of agency to the rape survivor? While I'd like to take the time and comment on this question in relation to Stiles' body of research, I will press ahead. In First They Killed My Father, Luong encounters a Yuan soldier in the woods where she goes to collect kindling. After asking the soldier for water to quench her thirst, he takes Luong far away, and she is under the innocent assumption that he is just going to show her where the water is nearby. Once she is hidden from her sister and her friend, Luong is shoved to the ground, and the soldier, likely twice her age and definitely twice her weight, attempts to rape her. He covers her face and, quote, his nails dug into her cheeks, end quote, an action of control that would ultimately leave scratches, if not permanent scars. After her attack, Luong experiences signs of post-traumatic stress disorder when she believes to see the soldier's face in the camp. In Belonging and Genocide, Thomas Kuhn argues that men were able to sow their wild oats and commit crimes that never would have been legal in Germany. In other words, the comradeship sought by most men fighting for the Third Reich was, quote, lived off of, collectively breaching the norm, end quote. Abusing women, essentially marking their bodies, was the action that you would prove you were the manliest soldier. One instance of proving masculinity is the rape of Genia Demyanova, a Russian teacher. She was raped by a Wehrmacht soldier who sought pleasure and respect from his comrades. He proudly boasted that, quote, the wild cat was tamed, end quote, and that Genia was a virgin. His attack is the ultimate mark against a female body. It is not only disgusting abuse, but thievery. After seeing and hearing what their sergeant got away with, the men in his command proceeded to rape Genia until they were all sexually gratified. While an entire book could be written about Phallocracy and genocide, I will stop here despite the wish to include articles by Robin May Shaw and Lisa Charlack from our course. There are so many rapes and sexual assaults that we still don't know about and may never know about because of fear and survivor guilt. A woman would relive the trauma and relive the markings that were forced upon her body by her perpetrators. With the testimonies that we do have, we know as scholars that women who were raped by Nazis or Serbians or UN soldiers all experience bodily markings that are visible and visible, to use Christine Stiles' language. Each marking causes additional layers of trauma, whether it be post-traumatic stress disorder or living with HIV/AIDS in the case of Rwanda. In the future, I wish to take Stiles' research a step forward with the following question. When writing about comfort women and genocides, Stiles utilizes Judeo-Christian texts about the old and new laws of treating women. Could particular religious texts have an impact on the phallocratic ideology of the perpetrators, even though some, like Nazis, laid claim to no religion, only political authority? Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed my presentation.